welcome to the Keep Indiana Learning. This is no joke, April Fool's Day live stream. So we're so excited. We have some amazing presenters today. Our friend Adam Hofer is going to start us off today. He's one of our digital learning coaches. He is an English language arts teacher and a technology integration coach at Franklin County Schools over in Brookville. Today, Adam's going to be talking about Soundtrap. So Adam, feel free to take it away.
All right, great. Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. Hey, everybody. As Kyle said, my name is Adam Hofer, and I am an English language arts teacher at the secondary level. So I've spent most of my time at the high school level, but have taught a little bit at the middle school level. And today I'm really excited to kind of walk you through something that's no joke. So you'll see all of the other digital learning coaches today really looking through some great tools and things that we use in our classrooms and across our districts. And so I'm excited to share one with you that I use in my English classroom called Soundtrap. So let's get into kind of what that looks like. So like I said, I teach at Franklin County Community Schools. We're a pretty rural school, so the southeastern part of the state. So you may know us. We have a big lake here, so that's how some people know us here in the southeastern part of the state. So I'm excited to spend this time with you today to walk through Soundtrap. All right, so when I was thinking about, what are some tools that I use and things that I keep coming back to, this tool of Soundtrap was one of those tools. And so I was thinking, like, why do I use it? And clearly, one of the big things, like, when we think about April Fool's Day, we don't want to have those jokes played on us. I was telling one of my colleagues earlier today that sometimes April Fool's Day is one of those, like, days you dread working with, like, middle school and high school kids. I don't know if it's the same at the primary level, but they always like to pull, different pranks and jokes. So it keeps the day interesting. But with Soundtrap, it has a free version. And I think you'll see a lot of that in the tools we're going to be sharing today from the other coaches. But there are some paid versions. So you have that like freemium type of idea. But if you are a new user, you do get that 1 month free to Soundtrap and Soundtrap EDU, which I'm going to be talking a little bit more about. So, but I think from my perspective, the free version has just enough because the other paid versions have so many intricacies that I think having the free version is just enough for students. So I really like that aspect of it. But the thing that draws me back to Soundtrap every year when I'm looking at some of my project-based learning stuff is the collaborative environment within Soundtrap. And so students can like share their recordings and share their like editing studio with other students. And so if they're working in small groups, all of those kids can be added into kind of that same account and working on that same project too. There are some times where, like, if a kid makes an edit or a student makes an edit without saving it while other student is editing, there have been some issues, but I really love that collaborative kind of learning environment that Soundtrap fosters. Then the next thing is this idea of robust editing. So there are tons of editing features within Soundtrap. I'm not like an editor, a sound editor, but I've been learning as I go. But there are a lot of tools that if you are someone who's really into the sound editing side of things, could really have students do some really incredible stuff. And then the thing that was a selling feature for me is I wanted something that my students could use on their Chromebooks. And since Soundtrap is this kind of cloud-based platform, it allowed them to easily use it from their Chromebooks, but then they could also download the app onto their mobile devices, and then they can pick back up with the projects. And so when we were like recording things for their podcasts, it was so great to have their phones available because they could record a voice memo or record straight into the Soundtrap app, and then they could come into my classroom and edit it with their groups. And so those are some reasons why I really kind of keep coming back to Soundtrap and why I have really enjoyed using it. Now, the other big things, when we think about, how we incorporate these, technologies into our classroom, we want to make sure that we're enhancing the learning environment, that they're not just these flashy tools, that those are nice sometimes, but we want to make sure that the learning is really happening. And I think that Soundtrap provides that learning environment. So, if you're someone who's really into project-based learning, I think this is a great way that you can, do a lot of different things with editing audio and having that audio into your classroom. And so, as I've talked about, one of the big projects that I do every year is a podcast project. We submit them to the NPR Student Podcast Challenge. That's kind of a national competition. And I really have loved seeing how students kind of think about research differently and how they think about how things told in an audio version, how much different that is than like writing an essay in my English class. And so getting that really hands-on kind of project-based learning has been really great. But I know some of my colleagues have talked about, in the social studies department or other departments, they talk about, have them put these slideshows together or these presentations together. And so I've been kind of working and talking with them about, okay, well, maybe we can have a few students doing the research, and you have students who are doing other aspects of the project through differentiation. But then thinking about maybe using Soundtrap as a way, can they create like an audio track for that? And so linking the presentation with some audio is another way to get student interest going in there. And then they're talking about like doing PSAs or commercials and having someone film the videos and then having kids do the audio through things like Soundtrap has been really cool to see. You can do like SEL checks. So I know there are tons of like different screencasts things you can do, and I think Tim's sharing about Loom later on, and so maybe that's something you can like look at doing that. But you can also do that in Soundtrap, and so having kids record a high low surprise from the week, or creating songs with the embedded free loops within Soundtrap, which I'll show you in a moment, could all be things that could be able to help enhance the learning environment. And the last thing I did want to mention here is there are some LMS integrations. So I've used Canvas or Google Classroom, but unfortunately those have moved to the paid versions. And so I want to keep talking about the free stuff, but if your corporation goes towards the paid EDU version, then you could have an integrated within your LMS. The other thing that was really important to me is that I knew what I was doing. So when I first found Soundtrap, I was like, okay, I've got to learn how to use it, as we do with any tool first. And Soundtrap provides some great professional development. And so they have certified educator courses, and there are 3 different levels. And so you can take each different level, and they have different tracks within those levels. So if you want to focus more on the podcasting side or music, and you can kind of pick and choose what you want. And we'll take a look at that in a moment when we demo out in the actual Soundtrap space. And then I think this is like a rock star place for teachers, is that there are already created lesson plans and curricular content for all discipline areas. And there's even some rubrics linked within there. And so I think that is like a gold mine when it comes to these different tools that provide some things that kind of help you get ideas flowing. And then the last thing for professional development, so there's also resources for our students. So you can share some of that with our students as well, to help them get to know things about Soundtrap and teach them as well. I did want to take a quick note to make this note. Soundtrap has kind of been shifting over the last year or so. During, I think, the pandemic was a lot of different tech things. They're kind of opening up some of their EDU stuff and allowing teachers to use it. That's starting to be kind of locked back down. And so they're starting to transition more of their secure versions over to their EDU side, which is a paid version. And so I just wanted to make this note to be sure to kind of review your district's student data privacy policies. They are complying with all of the guidelines, but you want to make sure that the free version is starting to become more open. And so we just want to make sure that we're protecting our students and their data and their privacy kind of moving forward. So I'm definitely looking into that more on my own as Soundtrap keeps making more transitions to these kind of paid walls that way to protect student and data privacy. So just something to kind of keep in mind moving forward if you're thinking about using Soundtrap in the classroom. All right, so I think now's the time, a great time to transition over to actually looking at Soundtrap and what that looks like. And so we're a Google school, and so Soundtrap links with Google, and so I'm already logged into my account here, which you can see. And this is kind of the home landing page. You can see some of the old projects. I just like do some like quick recordings with students. You can also see here that I have students who have shared things with me, and so I'm not going to hover necessarily over their profiles or their avatars, but you can see that there are multiple bubbles here to the right, and students have been able to add me as collaborators to their projects. And so they're like, Mr. Hofer, I'm struggling with this one little thing. Can you like go in and see what's going on? And I'm able to access it without having to go to their Chromebook and that kind of stuff. So I really like that about Soundtrap. So big thing would be, once you're in, you're going to enter into the Soundtrap studio. So I'm going to go ahead and enter into our studio, and it's going to bring up where all of the kind of magic happens, so to say. And you can choose from creating music or creating podcasts. So I'm going to click podcast for this. And just kind of give you a quick rundown. You can add new tracks here on the left. You have all those availabilities here. So you can import your own digital files. You can add those new tracks, import files. You can invite a friend to collaborate. You can also set up kind of like a Zoom link or a Meet link, and you can interview guests kind of directly in Soundtrap. So that's really great that you can kind of invite someone you want to interview right there. And then the really great thing that Soundtrap has started to add is all of the transcriptions. And so having that to make sure that, we're supporting the needs of all students and having all of that there is really great. So you can go into, add a new track, and it gives you options. And so there's all of these different things. So as I said before, music is not like how I use this a lot. So you can create, piano sounds and all these different instruments here, but I usually just go to this voice and microphone. And within that, you can do lots of different things with effects. And so you can explore some of the effects that are available to you. But it's simple as just, clicking record and starting record there. And you can see it starts to pick up the different recordings. And then you can stop that and it drops it right in there. And, students are able to, cut it back. They can loop it. They can edit this one piece. And so this is what I really like about it, is that when we're doing podcasts, they have all these different sections. And so I can have them give it a name. So maybe I give this one, call it, say, intro. And then they're able to see that pop up here. And so they know now, like, oh, that was the intro I recorded. And they can drag and drop that into different places and move that into different tracks if they had those. And so I think that's a really cool piece of this. And then the other thing that it offers, are these loops. And so over here on the right where you see the little music note, if you click there, you have a list of tons of different loops that you can go through. And these are all free. So this is the free version. So there are hundreds of, if not thousands of different things you can pick up, if you wanted to get different sounds. So if I maybe go with a guitar sound, I can listen to what that sounds like. And then I can then drag and add that into my loop. Oh, that's actually part of the premium. So they're labeled there. So I wasn't paying attention to that. So like this one would be free. So I can add that one to my actual recording. So that's a way you can kind of add some of that sound layer and kind of work through some of that. And there are a lot of different things you can do with these things through the editing. You can listen to just one certain track by silencing the others. So it really helps you really hone in on how you're using that. And I see students really have all different types of levels, and they kind of build out that podcast as it builds throughout their lesson. And we kind of work on each component. And so it's really neat to see them kind of piece it all together and then kind of finish it and be able to export one nice audio file that has it all together, ready for them to see and use. And so that's kind of the basics of kind of what the initial kind of landing page looks like. And I always give my kids, some time to play around. So I like to introduce it to them early. And so I kind of have early assignments like, go in and record like a 1 or 2 minute, just like talking about whatever topics they want. They can have friends on there, put music in. I just want them to explore. And I think we all do that when we have introduced these new technologies. We want them to get comfortable with it and kind of get acclimated to what's going on. So that's been really cool to see what kind of fun projects they kind of come up with as they're working through that. So that's kind of the basics of how you get into, recording things. And once you're done, you would exit the studio. And so you can save it here, you can give it a name, and then you can exit out of the studio, and it's going to start to mix that recording. Sometimes that can take some time depending on how long it is, but then that drops here. So this is now my most recent thing. So it says it's empty because it's kind of working on filling in those 2 little clips that I had in there. So then you can easily get back access to that by clicking and listening to it, and then going back into the studio from directly into that link if you need to make more edits to that recording. And then once they're done, so you see it also drop down here, I can go to the 3 dots, and now I can make it's still mixing, so I'm not able to download it yet. But once it was finished, I'd be able to download it, or I can publish it to other places. So if you allow them to do it to SoundCloud or YouTube, you have all these options as well. So those are some things you can do. As I mentioned in the presentation, some of the resources that Soundtrap provides, if you go to edu.soundtrap.com, this is kind of the educational portal, and there are a wealth of resources here for teachers and students and administrators. So I just want to show you some of those. So if you click on teachers, here are all those lesson plans I talked about. So you can definitely find some great lessons here already. So, say you're a science teacher and I'm not sure how I can use Soundtrap. Like here are all different, so an audio field guide of on-campus birds that includes song samples. So like recording things and then including those. You can see all these different really cool ideas for these different subjects. So, geography, first restaurants, so choosing a location and recording things within there. So a lot of really cool, unique things that I never really even would have thought about using in these different classes. So that is there for you in the teacher resource page. There also, you can find a link to the rubrics. So if you like to use those rubrics, you can view those templates here. And I have one opened up already. So this is one for podcasting. So they are a rubric ready for you. How great. And then you also have access to the Soundtrap certified educator courses, and you can find those at academy.soundtrap.com. So I know it's kind of a quick crash course in what Soundtrap is, but I think once you get around and play into it, you can really understand kind of the robust aspects of what Soundtrap is and how you can use it. So I hope you found that somewhat engaging, and I think you can find it hopefully useful, and definitely check out those resources in the teacher page. So I think those will be probably the biggest thing you can use moving forward. So yeah.
All right, awesome, Adam. That's some fantastic info. I guess I was thinking Soundtrap didn't have all those features in the free version. That's fantastic, because I know there's a lot of teachers that are looking for those different audio devices, and Soundtrap sounds like a fantastic tool.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm shocked by how much they offer in the free version. So it's really great. So that's why I always gravitate towards it. So yeah, it's awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Fantastic. And I love your idea of having students that have cell phones to be able to use those, because I remember as a former math teacher, they always used to say, well, kids aren't always going to have a calculator with them.
Right.
And you're right, but
now they do.
Yeah, now they do. So adjusting to our students and adjusting to the world now is a great thing. So it's a great, that's awesome that you're allowing your students to do that.
Yeah, and then having their smartphones and their mobile devices, it allows for such better audio quality. And I mean, it's just fantastic. Kids are so creative. Like they come up and they're able to figure out things way better than we can, can't they? So it's really cool to figure out. So
yeah, just give them that option, right? Let them try.
Absolutely, for sure.
All right. Well, on behalf of keepindianalearning.org and the digital learning coaches, Adam, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you that are still following at home, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at keepinlearning. And then don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. And don't forget, make sure you prank somebody really good on today's April Fool's Day.
Absolutely. Happy April Fool's Day.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. See ya.